Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir, tout le monde. Welcome to our regular council meeting of October 18th, 2021 at 6 p.m. We'll get this meeting started. Roll call. I'll ask all members of council to please announce themselves.
Mike Ternowski, présent.
André Brisson, présent.
Jamie Lauren.
Cindy Saucier here.
Thank you very much. And Madame la greffière est ici aussi?
Oui, Monsieur le maire, je suis ici.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. The prayer puis l'hymne national, on ne le fait pas virtuellement. Item 4, item 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. The first one is to remove item 19A since we don't have to continue the public meeting of the special meeting we just had. 18A, myself for Christmas parades. Item 18B, Councillor Saucier for the South Nation Conservation Auction. And we are adding item 20A1 under section 239-2C, potential acquisition of land in the village of Russell. That'll be in the closed session. So I need any other changes, members of council? Anything else to mention? No? So I need a mover and a seconder to put these changes on the table. Moved by Councillor Ternowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. Motion to approve the agenda as amended. So we have a mover and second. Go ahead. Sorry.
Mike Ternowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Saucier, yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Item 6, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Do we have any? Seeing, hearing none. Adoption of the minutes for the regular council meeting of October 4th, 2021. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Saucier, second by Councillor Ternowski. Questions? No questions. I'll call for the vote. Tous en faveur?
Mike Ternowski, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Saucier, yes.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. Item 8 puis 9, présentation et délégation, il n'y en a pas. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. We have A, request for the community grants from the Parks and Recreation Department of 2021 budget. Item B, minutes of the Community Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee, June 14, 2021. Item C, minutes of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell, August 25th, 2021. Item D, pay list of September 2021. And item E, minutes of the Russell Historical Society of September 13, 2021. Mover and a seconder put it on the table, please. Moved by Councillor Ternowski, seconded by Conseiller Brisson. Any questions? No questions. I'll call for the vote.
Mike Ternowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Saucier, yes.
Perfect. Item is carried. Thank you very much. Item 11, rapport des départements et comités du conseil. 11, reports from department and council committees. The first item is A, removal of part lock control refer to the bylaws under item 16. 1, 700, 702 Azure Street in Russell. Item 2, 708, 710 Azure Street in Russell. Item 3, 720, 722 Azure Street in Russell. Item 4, 323 to 325, 317, 319, 321 Central Park Boulevard, and 500 or 520, 522, 524, 526, 528 Manhattan Court in Russell. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the department, Madame Tremblay?
No, thanks.
Parfait. We'll move on to the next item. Item B, mise à jour de la politique des réserves, rapport FS 28-2021. Que le Conseil reçoit le rapport FS 28-2021 daté du 18 octobre 2021 et adopte le règlement proposé pour modifier la politique de gestion de réserve adoptée par le règlement 2017-119. This was a report that was presented at the last council meeting, and further more information was requested. Questions, comments, members of council? No, anything to add, Monsieur Godin? I see on the report that a few municipalities, once it's approved in the budget.
Excuse me, Mr. No, donc, this isn't actually the follow-up from last meeting. This is the reserve policy. It's
I was ahead in my mind. My apologies.
Yeah.
Reserve policy update. Vas-y.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So basically just updating the reserve policy. This was a policy that was adopted back in 2017. It was due for review during the last 4 years. We have noted a few items that we wanted to add to this policy and to tweak a little bit, if you will. So this is kind of a maintenance and update, and we've also included in there just to standardize our method of allocating interest revenues to our reserve. So it's something that we thought important to add to that. It's kind of a technical financial policy, but it's something that will help us maintain some proper reserves. Okay,
thank you very much. I see that in the history reference support information section, year-end transfers, the administration proposing to add to the policy integrity commissioner, insurance costs, growth management, cooling center, tree planting, park initiatives, and recreation programs. I did notice that during the budget, and we're going to talk more at the budget in a few days, but I saw a lot of departments have professional fees. So I just want to mention potentially that could be another section where we look at creating reserves. We continually put funds in there, but you know, historically looking over the last few years, we don't necessarily max out those amounts. So just a suggestion that we might have to have a discussion on that in the future of potentially adding a professional fees reserve fund. I'm not sure if the administration has thoughts on that idea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, from my end, it's not a bad idea. There's always room for additions to this policy. So definitely, when we do have those discussions at the working sessions later this week, it is something that we can, if council gives direction, we can definitely take it into consideration and have a future report to council to update the policy in question.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Quelque chose à ajouter, Monsieur Leduc? We're good?
Non, moi je pense que c'est une bonne idée dans le sens que c'est un fonds qui, souvent c'est un fonds qui n'a pas de dépenses spécifiques au budget parce que souvent c'est relié à des frais d'avocat. Et puis, on a souvent des mises en demeure ou des réclamations durant l'année qu'on ne sait pas s'il va en avoir ou non. Donc, on pourrait peut-être réduire un peu certaines lignes de budget comme ça, en même temps qu'on a une réserve, qu'on puisse aller advenant qu'il y ait des réclamations de présenter à l'administration. Donc, I think that's a good idea and certainly worth discussing in the next couple of days.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Monsieur Godin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I still maybe wanted to touch on one of these additions to the policy because a lot of them are minor in the grand scheme of the overall budget. One that does have quite a significant impact, and I think it might be a good time to touch on it instead of at the working sessions, just because it kind of links into the presentation we had earlier today with the DC study. We're proposing here the creation of a growth management fund. Essentially, just to give council a brief idea of what this is, and we will talk about it a bit more into details when we go over the presentation of the budget on Wednesday. But every year we do have to estimate our supplementary tax revenues, which derive from growth. We have seen in the last few years that growth has been accelerated and that those revenues have been higher than we've budgeted in the last couple of years. What we're proposing here is that when we do receive extra money from growth, that we do put it into a growth management fund, and certain things that can be used that can be used for is like the consultant Andrew mentioned, for projects that are growth related, we can't always fund them 100% from DC. Sometimes we have to go into taxation or user fees. This is a way we can kind of manage that by building this fund from growth revenues, but on a taxation side, where we can then allocate them to those kinds of projects. So just wanted to give council a bit of context as to what that is, and we'll definitely touch on it more later this week when we talk about the budget.
Okay. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Godin. Anything to add from members of council? No. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. The amendment to the purchasing policy report FS 31A 2021. That council receives report FS 31A 2021 dated October 4, 2021 and proposed bylaw to amend the purchasing policy bylaw 2019-085. This is the one that's coming back. My apologies. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Tarnowski.
I just wanted to clarify that I'm okay with the amendments, including the increased ceiling to the 150K. I appreciated the added insight with that information on the other municipalities. Thank you very much for doing that extra work.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Tarnowski. Anything to add from the administration, Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. No, I think the report speaks for itself. It's the same as last week, but the schedule that we did add, I think, responds to the questions that we had from council last week. So.
Okay, parfait. Merci beaucoup. With that, we will move on to the next item. Item D, mise à jour, emprunt, achat de terrain et réfection de pont, rapport FS 33-2021. Que le Conseil reçoit le rapport FS 33-2021, daté du 18 octobre 2021, et approuve le financement des deux projets suivants par un emprunt de nos réserves. Achat de terrain parc industriel C0821 20 048 2021 et le petit pont du Saint-Joseph C0340 21004 2021. Questions, commentaires, questions, comments, members of council. Councillor Tarnowski.
So I love the fact that we're able to self-fund our projects through the reserves. It makes total sense to me. Having said that, and to further try to understand what we can and can't do, I was just wondering why would we not fund our projects through reserves, but at a same or slightly lower rate than the bank rate, and account for that? And I understand that our reserves make a certain interest rate, and that would therefore make that interest rate higher. But I still think that it helps us develop and grow our reserves in doing something like that. Because if the true cost for us, if we didn't have reserves, was that bank interest rates, why would we not charge that to the project and still benefit or grow our reserves more that way?
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Tarnowski. Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Godin.
Oui, merci, Monsieur Mayor. So great question, Councillor Tarnowski. And just maybe to touch on the thoughts or the thinking process behind all of this, we did consider different interest rates to use for this practice. I'll mention three different rates. So there is our revenues that we collect from our bank account, excuse me, which are at 0.45% currently. We also considered a higher rate, which is our the 20-year rate that's available to us from Infrastructure Ontario, which is 2.65. So there is a large difference there. And understanding your question, if we do go with a 2.65%, we would that would for sure help grow our reserves and our other reserves. That being said, the rate that we are proposing here is it's still an external rate. It's the rate that we do get from Infrastructure Ontario, and it's the construction loan rate, which is essentially a type of loan that we can have or we can obtain from Infrastructure Ontario when we want to front some money during construction before locking into a long term. This is a much lower rate because it's not locked in long term. We at a certain point in time we do have to pay that down. We opted to go to propose that rate for a few reasons. The first being, if you compare different loan structures, we felt that this compares to that one a bit more, in the sense that we still at any point in time have the flexibility, if we see that we do need some funds, to go out to a bank or to Infrastructure Ontario and finance the project long term. So in that sense, we felt that the practice mirrors a bit more the idea of a construction loan, which is kind of like the word escapes me, but like a day-to-day loan from the bank. And also we wanted to still make sure that we did grow our reserves. So that being said, we did use that rate, which is a bit higher than what our savings account does accumulate. So it's kind of a win for our reserves there, but it's also a win for the project in the sense that we do save on interest costs, and so we save on having to increase taxes to make those payments of that loan right internally. That being said, I mean, obviously council would have the discretion to change that to anywhere between those two, but that's where the administration felt was appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. Any follow-up questions, Councillor Tarnowski?
No, I appreciate that explanation. That is very helpful. Thank you. I'm not proposing any changes.
Okay.
And line of credit is what I was looking for.
Perfect. Any other questions, comments, Conseiller Brisson?
Oui, c'est juste expliquer parce que dans la cédule A, il y a 10 options 1, 2 et 3. mais je vois pas la différence entre 2 et 3. Comme 1, ça a l'air comme si tu l'empruntes tout, mais juste m'expliquer un peu c'est quoi la différence entre le 2 et 3, puis...
OK, merci. Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, M. le maire. Donc, merci, M. conseiller Brisson. Une très bonne question encore. L'option 2 et 3, la seule différence, c'est le montant du paiement annuel qu'on effectue. Donc, l'option 2, puis ceci est spécifique pour l'emprunt pour le pont. L'option 2, ce qu'on présente, c'est les résultats si jamais on emprunterait sur un emprunt de 20 ans à 0,67 %. Tandis que l'emprunt numéro 3, et on va en discuter encore pendant les discussions du budget parce que c'est cette option-là qu'on a choisie pour le budget 2022. C'est que si on fait des paiements annuels de 100 000 $ par année, donc en faisant des paiements annuels de 100 000 $ par année, ça va faire en sorte que l'emprunt va être payé au bout de 10,5 années. Ça va prendre 10 ans au lieu de 20 ans à plus avoir cette dette sur nos livres, si tu veux. Donc, le taux est le même parce qu'on propose dans les deux options d'emprunter de nos propres réserves. C'est juste la durée des paiements puis le montant des paiements qui diffère entre les deux.
OK.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup pour l'explication, M. Godin. D'autres questions, commentaires? Other questions or comments? Okay, hearing or seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Merci, M. Godin. Next item is E, Municipal Modernization Program Intake 3, Report FS 35 2021. The Council receives Report FS 35 2021 dated October 18, 2021 and approves and endorses a grant application for the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 3 for the purchase of an electronic software for the treatment of accounts payable, as well as the purchase of the SharePoint software. Monsieur Godin, I know SharePoint is available at a few other municipalities have it along with the counties. I've heard nothing but good things. If you could give us some further context.
Oui, merci, M. Maire. Yes, so definitely. So these two projects, this is the third intake of the Municipal Modernization Program. So if Council will remember, earlier this year, we did make some applications in the second intake, and we had three projects which were approved. The third intake, so the province is really pushing for some technology or some efficiency softwares or practices. So we did decide to apply for a couple of softwares which were going to be included in the 2022 budget regardless, but this is a great opportunity to apply to have 65% of those projects funded. On the SharePoint side, really it's a tool which will really help regarding records management. It's regarding working online, our shared folders. There can often be some issues in regards space, security, and things like that. And like you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, so we do, I know the United Counties do use it, and there's a few municipalities around there who do use it. It's been, we've heard nothing but great things, but definitely that during our working sessions of the budget, there was going to be a lot more information presented to council on that. And on the payable side, we just went through a pandemic where from one day to the other, we had to work from home. And it definitely was an adjustment and a process to not just for the payables, but for a lot of different processes. But we did really, it did really open our eyes to places where we can improve in that in the process being electronic. Whether it be lost invoices or just on the workflow from one invoice going from one building to the other, from one department to the other, from 4 or 5 different staff members before it's processed. We're looking to improve efficiency there. So those are 2 projects that we thought could be applied for with this program, and we're very hopeful to have a positive answer from the province to have 65% of those costs funded.
Thank you very much, Mr. Godin. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Tarnowski?
Just a quick question in regards to the efficiency part of that ask. So if the province is giving us money to improve efficiencies, how do they measure those improved efficiencies? Are we actually measuring improved efficiencies? I know that obviously the technology, the shared drives and so on makes total sense. We do that at the college as well. But what's the requirement from the province's perspective in terms of deliverables, in terms of measured efficiency improvements? Like, how do they score that?
Through Ms. Mayor, so it's a great question, Councilor Tarnowski. So they do require some reporting. So when we did complete the application, which will be submitted if this goes through, we're required to estimate how exactly, and there's nothing prescriptive about how we measure it, but we do have to show that it is making us more efficient. So we have worked on some tables to calculate efficiencies, whether it be staff costs, or printing and things like that. So we have communicated, or we will be communicating to the province how we feel this is going to make us more efficient with a dollar value tagged to it. And after a year that we've implemented these projects, we will need to report back to the province as well to show them the results and to be able to demonstrate that it has in fact made us more efficient. Not to say that they're going to ask for the money back if we're not efficient, but they do want to make sure that we are using these funds appropriately and that we report back to show them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, members of council? Perfect. Monsieur Leduc?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just an example of some uses of that software. For example, sharing closed session documents with council. We have an issue with working virtually, how to share with your documents. This is some way where you can have specific access, for a temporary access, unable to copy, unable to do different things. But this is hard to measure in dollars, but certainly from your perspective, to have a better information, more information ahead of time will save maybe some dollars by having a report ahead of time and being able to access them more easily. So those are things that SharePoint can offer, and that's why I was really interested in this software. And from that perspective, and but certainly some things can be easily done measured in dollars, and some may be more in efficiency, strictly to the point of it.
Okay, thank you very much, Monsieur Leduc. I know we're going to discuss this in a few days. Can you, off the top of your head, Monsieur Godin, is the grant taken into consideration as a funding option in the budget for this item, or was strictly put in to be paid? I think you know where I'm going with this. I'm just looking for opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at this point in time, yeah, we have in the budget budgeted some revenues of 65%. So we are kind of assuming that we will be having a positive answer, and if not, then at that point in time we'll have to come back to council so that council decides, are we still going forward with the investment, or with other funding from elsewhere, or are we putting this project aside and going back to the drawing table?
Okay, perfect. I was hoping for the opposite, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll have those discussions in a few days. If there's no follow-up questions, then we will go to the next item. Item F, mise à jour du plan de sécurité pour piétons, rapport ISPW 2021. The council receives report ISPW 2021 dated October 18, 2021, and 1, approves the proposed action plan for the new recommended locations, and 2, adopts the attached resolution to send to the Public Works Committee of the United Counties of Prescott and Russell. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Brisson, conseiller Tarnowski, puis conseiller Lorrain.
OK. Ça fait que c'est juste pour clarifier la résolution ici pour Comté-Uni. C'est juste pour mettre des petits poteaux flexibles entre Broadway puis Hamilton. C'est ça pour celle-là?
Oui, ça c'est Monsieur Bourgon. On avait eu une discussion, une couple de meetings passés, puis ça c'était la direction du conseil. Ça c'est la résolution de ces discussions-là, c'est ça?
Effectivement, Monsieur le maire, donc c'est suite à la discussion qu'on a eue au conseil. Donc, vous avez eu la direction de préparer une résolution pour l'installation de des poteaux flexibles près du Tim Hortons à Russell. Donc, si approuvée ce soir, la résolution va être envoyée aux Comtés-Unis pour leur prochaine rencontre de travaux publics le mois prochain.
Oui, à cause d'un chemin de comté, on a besoin de permission pour mettre les bollards. Follow-up question? Follow-up question?
Oui, c'était juste savoir, est-ce qu'il y avait eu une résolution semblable comme ça pour une traverse, pour demander une traverse à piscine à Russell?
Monsieur Bourgon?
On a la traverse de la piscine, il y a eu certains échanges auparavant, même quelques années passées. Donc, je pourrais juste confirmer si ça avait été bien envoyé au compte des unis, mais cette location-là faisait partie du plan qui a été présenté au conseil là, en juin dernier.
Ça veut-tu dire qu'il a été envoyé au compte des unis? Parce que je sais qu'il faut que ça soit avant le mois d'août, là, si on veut que ça soit considéré pour être bâti, là, mais...
Oui, mais le conseil au mois de juin a approuvé, dans le fond, un plan d'action pour l'été prochain. Là. Donc, je vais juste m'assurer que si la résolution aussi au comté, c'est pas clair, ben, je peux toujours rapporter quelque chose là, d'ici là.
OK. C'est juste m'assurer qu'en même temps que ça soit fait. OK, merci.
Merci. Then I believe it was Councillor Tarnowski and then Conseiller Lorrain. Did I do that right? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Tarnowski.
I'm not muted. Good. All right. So I just wanted to say that the synopsis in this was excellent. We've had a lot of feedback from residents over the last, I would say, over the summer and spring, you know, complaining about the pedestrian crossings on Facebook and so on, about safety. And so it's really nice to see all this coming through, and that kind of summary is you know, really demonstrates how much work goes into this and how much the township does focus on safety for our residents. So it's really nice to see. Thank you very much for that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. Conseiller Lorrain.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have two questions. So one directly to this report, one indirectly. So the first one is the bollards that we're talking about under number 1 on York Crossing. Are they going to, would they interrupt the school bus flow, as there are many school buses in the morning that are going to have to come through this section, that section of the development, and specifically at the corner of Station and Station Trail and Boxcar off of York Crossing? That's my first question.
Okay, thank you. Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So those installation does not interfere with buses traffic flow. We already have them at several locations within the township. I'll take Blair as an example, which is a road heavily used by buses, and there's no issue. As for location, we do look at distance from the intersection, driveways. So it's to find the best exact location that doesn't interfere with those type of landmark.
Okay. And the second one is, and maybe this is more, whether it's, I don't know if it's Monsieur Bourgon, whether it's Madame Guital, or whether it's Madame Bordeaux. But the question is, when we have a crossing guard at one of the crossings, pedestrian crossings. So I'll use right in front of Mother Teresa School. There is a new installation right at the trail, but that's also where the crossing guard is in the morning and at night. Is the crossing guard supposed to push the button, or are they not supposed to push the button to activate? Like, would that be an extra safety measure, or do they just use their stop sign in their hand? And I'm just looking for the safety of everybody involved. So I don't know who would answer that, but because currently right now they do not activate the crosswalks.
Okay, thank you very much. Conseiller Lorrain, would this be a question, Madame Bordeaux, I would assume?
Yes. It could be an extra measure. The only issue I have is if the light stops flashing and the crossing guard is not finished crossing students, then it could be an issue.
Okay. Are we, I know we had discussion in regards to possibly a crossing at Heritage. With the fact that we put a new electronic pedestrian crossing and still having a crossing guard there, are we, you know, should we be moving resources around, or is just we're increasing the level of service at this one location? I guess that'll be part of the gap analysis, Monsieur Bourgon, that you guys will look at or in conjunction with Madame Bordeaux, is do we really need both at one location? Not sure if anybody has a comment like that, or you guys will look at that when you do your analysis.
We're doing the analysis, the gap analysis right now at Heritage. And the report will be coming at the next council meeting. But for the crossing at the Mother Teresa and the Nature Trail, the reasoning behind keeping the crossing guard there was that there are a lot of people crossing, a lot of very young people crossing, so that's why we didn't want to move that crossing guard from there.
Okay. With time, maybe it becomes an education session where we have the crossing guard there for a certain amount of time, showing the kids how to use the proper crossing method, but we'll wait to the analysis and have further discussion at that point in time. Merci beaucoup, Madame Bordeaux. Any other questions, comments of members of council? No? Parfait. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bourgon, pour le rapport. Je trouve que c'est très bien. Évidemment, it was a big concern during the pandemic, pedestrian safety, and I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with these type of improvements. Avec ça, on va aller au prochain item qui est encore Monsieur Bourgon. Item G, Shared Services Arrangement on County Roads, Report ISPW 2021. Que le conseil reçoit le rapport, que le conseil reçoit le rapport ISPW 21-2021 daté du 18 octobre 2021 et accuse réception de la politique d'arrangement de partage de services sur les chemins de comté. Questions, comments, members of council? Conseiller Brisson.
Yeah, there are just a few typing mistake. And a few questions I have comment after, but at page 5, 3.2.4, en parenthèse, c'est supposé d'être 1500 et non 3000, because it says half from UCI, they use comme des comtés unis pour payer, puis c'est marqué 3000 au lieu de 1500. Si vous le trouvez ou si c'est bon, là.
Okay.
Puis après ça, l'autre erreur, il y a, que je pense, à page 7, 5.1.1, c'est écrit le titre pour égout sanitaire au lieu d'être marqué pour l'eau. Parce que l'égout sanitaire, c'est l'article au-dessus. Puis là, en dessous, c'est supposé être pour l'eau. Puis là, le titre est avec encore écrit égout sanitaire. Oui.
OK, je pense que le document qui parle, c'est le document des comtés unis spécifiquement. C'est pas notre document, c'est ça, monsieur?
Okay.
Ben, exactement. J'allais ajouter que ce document-là a été approuvé par le Conseil des comtés en début d'année. Donc, ce n'est pas le document de la municipalité, c'est vraiment un document officiel des comtés unis. Donc, on a juste jugé bon de le partager pour que le Conseil ait connaissance d'un tel document. Parce que souvent, on a, surtout pour informer les résidents, pour les demandes qu'on reçoit ou le partage de comment financer certains projets, mais la politique là, des chemins de comté fait vraiment référence à les responsabilités de quel palier de gouvernement.
Okay. Juste leur transmettre. Ouais.
Oui. OK. Y avait-tu des questions là-dedans, conseiller Brisson?
J'avais une question aussi pour, je ne l'ai pas vu à nulle part, qui est responsable pour la gestion de l'îlot dans les ronds-points? Je ne l'ai pas vu à nulle part. Est-ce que c'est écrit ou si c'est...
Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, monsieur le maire. Donc, puisque c'est si on parle vraiment juste, pas de l'aménagement, mais juste de l'îlot en général, ce serait aux comtés unis. Si vous faites référence à l'aménagement de notre rond-point, mais là, il y a une entente avec la municipalité là, à ce moment-là.
Ça fait que tout rond-point, la gestion de l'îlot comme végétal retombe aux municipalités et non au comté, c'est ça?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Ben, là, c'est qu'il y aurait des ententes où il y aurait avant la construction de chacun de ces ronds-points-là. Mais si ce serait, si je vais prendre l'exemple, ce serait un îlot seulement en ciment, comme en béton avec rien, ben là, au moment du remplacement, c'est les comtés unis qui paieraient à ce moment-là.
Ouais. Juste la beauté puis l'upkeep dans le milieu, ça, comme c'est là avec le rond-point existant, c'est la municipalité qui est responsable.
Exactement. Puis pour des ronds-points futurs, ben, ça va être des détails à clarifier là, avant la construction de ce rond-point-là. C'est une nouvelle section qui est ajoutée dans la politique. Il y a encore peut-être des changements, des ajustements à venir, mais on sait que les ronds-points là, vont être quand même prédominants dans notre région. Mais pour ce qui est entré à l'entretien, ça va être des choses à clarifier là, ou à mettre par entente là, avant la construction.
OK, c'est juste pour être clair.
Parfait. Je pense qu'à la fin de la journée, qu'il y ait la végétation ou non, ça ne change pas l'efficacité du rond-point. So, je pense que les comtés unis pourraient dire, ben, c'est pas à nous autres de faire la beauté, nous autres, c'est aider avec le flot du trafic, puis c'est ça qu'est-ce qu'ils font. C'est vraiment un choix municipal à ce point-ci, mais définitivement, je suis d'accord, conseiller Brisson, que ça va être quelque chose à clarifier avec eux, puis on va le faire avec les ententes. D'autres questions, commentaires? Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter, M. Bourgon?
Non, comme j'ai mentionné, it's assist a member of council to understand the shared responsibility along county roads to better answer question from a resident, and it's the other municipality will likely do the same thing just to share that agreement, so to avoid some confusion.
OK, parfait. Merci beaucoup pour le rapport. Prochain item, item H, discretionary funding from the counties. Report PR 22 2021. The council receives report PR 22 2021 dated October 18, 2021 and confirms that the $10,000 received from the United Counties of Prescott and Russell was used towards the operations and the purchase of equipment for the Barracuda swim team at the Russell Centennial Pool and its different swimming programs. Questions, comments, members of council? This is pretty standard every year. Quelque chose d'autre à ajouter, Madame Guittard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. No, I guess we're always very happy to receive those funds. It alleviates the municipal contribution at the end of the summer. So.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. Prochain item, item E, 2021 Citizen Satisfaction Survey, report CAO 09 2021. The council receives report CAO 09 2021 dated October 18, 2021 for information. Monsieur Leduc.
Monsieur le maire, membre du conseil, donc this is our fifth annual survey, and these are the results of the fifth annual survey conducted between the period of June to August. Even though there were no surveys in 2020, our last survey was 2019. At that time, 425 residents had responded to the survey. This time around, 2 years after, during COVID, 364 residents completed the survey, so it was a little less than we had initially back then in 2019, but certainly quite an interest in responding to this survey. Also interesting in the survey, probably over 65% of the respondents are new to the survey, so that's quite interesting to see what they have to say. A lot of time they're new residents also making some comments in the comments sections. I think this time around in the report you've seen in the key trends and consideration sections in the report after question 20. We've kind of responded back to some of these comments because I thought there was some information needed to be out there. For example, the road repairs seems to be what comes up a lot in those surveys. And as indicated in the report, over the last I think it was since 2016, over the last 5 years, about 38% of our road network have been repaved. So it's about close to 80 kilometers that were redone by council. Also, we want to mention to the public that council has taken some deliberate actions to address this issue by having the additional 1% tax increase for road rehabilitation efforts. So I think we needed to say that in the report because that comment is coming quite often. And the other trend that's coming up is the value for tax dollars. I think we responded to that section where the taxes always seem to be high as a compared to elsewhere. But we've responded in a report to say that, you know, council again has increased taxes by 1% over the last 2 years, 1% each, so to assist us in the funding of the rec complex project. So I think once those are responded into the public domain, maybe people understand better what actions council did take to try to address the issue of parks and recreation level of service and the road repairs. Obviously, we'll be conducting our level of service review. We've given this contract back in September. We're scheduled for a January reply to council regarding the status of this survey. But certainly they'll be leading us certainly to some more questions in the next year's survey, because I think we need to redo the survey now that we had gone through this for 5 years. I think there was a need for a revised version of the survey. But certainly we had the great feedback from the community on this survey. Obviously, as you know, waste collection, recycling is always another one that comes up, and communication. And I think we've tried our best to improve those levels of services. And I think in our survey it shows that those who have participated in the past, about 25% of the people have participated, almost over 70% did say that we have improved since the last 5 years since we've started the survey. So we do have a grade, which has an A grade that came up, so it's the same grade as last year. But certainly I think people are seeing the improvements that are made, and I wanted to share with the community the information that needs to be out there, so that they understand that council is taking measures to really improve or trying to address these issues raised by these surveys. So, Monsieur Maire, membre du Conseil, je vais prêt à prendre les questions.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Leduc. Very appreciated. Questions, comments, members of council. Councillor Saucier, Councillor Tarnowski.
Thank you for the report, and I think it's valuable. And, you know, like you said, the same things kind of come up, but I really do believe that we are doing a good job at the township for communicating, you know, so many different avenues that have been presented, including, you know, the mayor's videos and wrap up of our council meetings online, our electronic sign. So again, I think people need to seek out also to get the information that they're looking for. So we've improved our website, you know, I think we've really made an effort to improve that. Our newsletter that goes out in the mail, you know, there's just so many things that are being done. But again, if people don't know, because I found it interesting that they didn't know about the committees, you know, and things like that, and where to look for them. So, and I guess the other thing that just the waste, you know, if we do end up going with the green bin, that it will reduce our waste at the curb also. And I'm just curious, I can't remember off the top of my head, but Jonathan, you might be able to help me on this, is how many years we've been at one bag successfully. I'm sure it is 15, if not more, is my guesstimate, you know, and it's just, you know, been pretty successful, I think, and with the recycling and what have you, and the efforts the residents are making, and our yard waste days being increased and things like that. So that was just a few of the things that jumped out at me reading the report. But I think it's a very effective tool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saucier. I think that you're right. Communication is a two-way street. Residents have to want to find that information. Monsieur Leduc.
Yeah, two things, Mr. Mayor. I think to the comment about one bag per household, that's at least been there for at least 7 to 9 years in place, I believe, because I was there when this happened. So it's not over 12 years. And also, I think, although since there's less coverage from local written newspapers, obviously we're losing some readership there, and people are complaining a bit that they're relying a lot on social media and electronic medias. But that really has hampered a bit the fellowship. I think we haven't seen any reporters at our sessions, at our meetings, reporting directly from their participation at meetings. So this has really been missing in our communication link with residents, but certainly we're trying to cope with that. It was a little bit better when we had more coverage by local newspapers back then, but this is a new reality, and there are issues with that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Monsieur Leduc. I find it interesting that, on one hand, we have people saying we would like all these extra services. And on the other hand, it's like, well, we don't want to pay more in taxes. And that's where those discussions come so important at budget time, because we're always put in that situation. I believe there was another question, Councillor Tarnowski.
So thank you very much for the report. Very timely considering this week's budget discussions. I was just wondering, since we do this annually, except for last year, of course, but since we do this annually, why wouldn't we compare results? I know our questions may not be always exactly the same, but is there a way to compare our results over time?
Monsieur Leduc?
Yes, Councillor Tarnowski, I think that's a good suggestion. That's something that I was discussing today with Mrs. Baylor. There's been some change in communication over the years and with COVID, but that's certainly something we can put together and maybe inform council of some of the past results so we can see the improvement over time. We could do that.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. D'autres questions, commentaires? If there's no further questions, if there's nothing to add, Monsieur Leduc, we'll move on to the next item.
Mr. Mayor, I think in my transition report to the next CEO, that will be something that I will be sharing with the results of some of the comments received. So there will be some action items for the next business plan, or certainly some next items for the new council for the next strategic plan orientation. So we'll make that information available to the next CEO.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Next item is item J, Community Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee Recommendation 2021-001, Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. The council receives recommendation 2021-001 dated October 12, 2021 from the Community Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee with respect to the proposed Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement, and that council provides further direction on how to proceed. Questions, comments, members of council on this recommendation? Councillor Saucier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just had a couple of questions, and I mean, I'm on a number of committees, and we're doing the same thing, acknowledging the land. We do it also at the library board, but I'm just wondering, just from your wording, if it would be I noticed the Anishinaabe was missing, and also there was another one. Sorry, Mike?
I'm sorry, I believe it's an Anandat.
Yes, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
And on it, I'm going to massacre that name anyway, Haudenosaunee.
Yep.
And so I'm just wondering, is it a good idea to name each one, or just say First Nations peoples and the sacred Aboriginal land, and just to tie that in? Because I just noticed there's only Iroquois, Algonquin, and Mohawk mentioned. Yeah, so that was sort of the question I had.
Okay, thank you very much. We did have that discussion. The reason that the First Nations names are not mentioned as opposed to Iroquois, Algonquin, and Mohawk, it was a simple fact we didn't want to butcher their names. So the committee felt that it would be better to pronounce it this way. In regards why we are recognizing Iroquois, Algonquin, and Mohawk, that's because that's the three First Nations that the land we are on in Russell Township trace back to those First Nations people. So that's why we acknowledge, it's a land acknowledgement statement for the lands we are on presently, not for the lands everywhere. So there's actually a website called nativeland.ca where you can punch in the area and it'll tell you, it'll show you a map of the First Nations people in that area. So native.land or -land.ca. So that was the 3 First Nations people that occupied Russell Township historically in the past. So that's why we're acknowledging those 3 First Nations.
Okay. Yeah, no, I did look it up too, and I got a bit of different information, but I think the closest I could get was Cornwall, in between Cornwall and Ottawa. It didn't really pinpoint this area, so I was just trying to find a way that was more inclusive, I guess, for that, because it is the Inclusion and Diversity Committee. But anyway, that was just my point. So I will say thank you in Algonquin, Miigwech.
Thank you. Councillor Tarnowski, did you have a comment? Did I see your hand up?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I was wondering if, I just want to be sure, because as Councillor Saucier mentioned, we have a different statement on the library board. It would be nice to know that we're doing this properly, in full respect of the Indigenous people, and perhaps maybe the recommendation would be to check that with the AFN, Assembly of First Nations. They would have local elders that could probably corroborate and support this. And yeah, Miigwech. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know that we did reach out to several different organizations, but I'll make note of it for the FAN to see if they can assist. We didn't get much feedback in response, but I do know that there was great collaboration between the members of the committee on this one. Part of the discussion was how often are we doing these? Are we doing these at every council meeting, like our prayer? You know, there was suggested that committee meetings only do it once a year. So the committee is really looking for feedback from council on what it's comfortable with. Honestly, from my perspective, it's a sign of respect, of acknowledgement. I think it should be done at every one of our council meetings. If we do a prayer, there's no difference in my mind of doing a small prayer and doing this land acknowledgement. So I think it should be done at every council meeting. But just looking for feedback. I know I had a member of a resident that sent some information today in regards to some of the wording they had concerns with. So if council decides to send this back to the committee level, then I will share that information with the members of the committee who are working on it to try and clear it up. I don't think this is something we're working on, and I think we should take our time and make sure we do it right, as opposed to putting something out and then having to retweak it because some information came in and we have to readjust. You know, I'd rather take our time and as opposed to doing it 3-4 times because new information came in. So just looking for further comments if members of council feel it should be done a certain way. Councillor Saucier and then Councillor Tarnowski.
Yeah, I would suggest looking into it further, and I'm in agreement with your suggestion that we do it before council meetings. I think it's something that needs to be done. I just attended a ceremony this week, and it's part of reconciliation as well. So yeah, I'm supportive of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tarnowski.
So I would just request maybe if we can align with any other parts of the township that's doing this. So as we mentioned earlier on, we do this acknowledgement prior to our library board meetings, and it'd be good that we're all on the same page on it in terms of what is said and why it's being said. So I think as part of this reconciliation is also to make sure that we all understand what we're talking about or why we're saying these things. And so it would be good to be consistent. So I'm happy to support that in any way we can with the library board, and I'm sure they're open to it as well. So if I can request that, please, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess the direction that we're going to do is send it back to the committee level with the comments of trying to confirm with the Assembly of First Nations on the line acknowledgement. Councillor Tarnowski is suggesting that we contact the library board, get the library board statement to see how that could possibly line up. I'm not sure if there's any other, I don't think from the township perspective there's any other committees or anything that are doing that. I'll have to verify. I don't believe we do it at South Nation either. I'm not sure if South Nation, not before every board meeting. That's what I'm referring to. I'm not sure if they do it at other parts of the committee meetings, but I know that South Nation works very closely with First Nation, so that's possibly something that's going to come in the future. But maybe what we can do is we can request from other municipalities in Prescott Russell, see if they're doing it. Maybe just a quick email to see if they do have it, what they have on theirs. Any other thoughts, Councillor Tarnowski, Councillor Saucier?
So not to belabor the point, but I would also ask maybe that we consider explaining this acknowledgement on our website and why we do it as part of the education piece around this. I think it makes sense to do that.
Yeah, I think that that definitely could be a page added to the diverse committee on diversity page, and it could be we'll. Some of the discussion was as well is that, when you go on the township page, that's splashed right at the top. This is the acknowledgement is there for everybody to see. Several websites that I've dealt with at the college university level have that as well. So an education component. So that's definitely something we can put together as well. Councillor Saucier?
Yeah, those are really good ideas. We have done a statement before the Environment Committee, just, again, because we're talking about the land and the environment, and we have acknowledged before our meetings start as well. So, yeah, I'd be happy to send what we had written as well. And
Okay.
but I think, going to the Assembly of First Nations is the right place to go.
Perfect. Conseiller Larin?
Yeah, I'm just going to support Councillor Tarnowski, Councillor Saucier, and yourself, the recommendation to go to the AFN. There's also Indigenous Services Canada that could probably shed some light there as well. So I know that in my day job and environment, we held a conference just before the pandemic, and we were able to find a statement as well, acknowledging that we were similar to the second line, that we're on unceded land. So there's pretty standard terminologies that are out there, or statements. So I'm sure AFN, Indigenous Services Canada, those types of groups will be able to help us out, or organizations.
Perfect.
So I fully support that.
Thank you very much. I know that the committee members that were working on this, they went the AMO organization, Association of Municipalities Ontario, had a full page dedicated to First Nations and land acknowledgement statement. So there was resources that were researched and used, but we can definitely make sure we tweak this in order to get it right. Conseiller Brisson?
And as it was mentioned, it would be good that at least at the municipal level that we all have the same, whether it's at the library or anywhere. So that's why to have the same one and having one unique and trying to be a complete.
Yeah, but thank you, Conseiller Brisson. But I agree with Councillor Tarnowski. We should have an education component attached to this. Why are we doing, this land acknowledgement statement? I think too often it just seems like it's become, because everybody's doing it, organizations are just doing it, but the education component seems to be lost. So I think that'd be important to have that on our websites somewhere for the public to understand properly. Quelque chose à ajouter, Monsieur Le Duc?
Oui, Monsieur le Maire, Madame du Conseil. Yes, part of the committee's work is to do the education piece of the community. That's why we'll count on them to assist in the preparation of the page on the website. And also, I don't think the administration was consulted when the other, like the environmental committee or the library did theirs. So I can't say we did share our opinions or our concerns there. So they were done individually. So we'll work with them to find out, but they'll have to go back and reapprove if they want to or not, but that will be up to them to do that. But we were not engaged into those discussions.
Okay.
Or I was not, at least, for sure.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Tarnowski?
100% agree. Definitely, that it was kind of done on its own. We're all trying to figure out what to do and how to properly do it. And I think this is part of the learning process around this. So definitely appreciate that for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we will move on to the next item, which is item 12. Reports from an investigation of the ombudsman. We have none. Item 13, notice of motion. We have none. Item 14, question period on the meeting of the day. If anyone has a question, please put it in the chat box, your name and address, and your question, please. We do have a question. Mr. Charles Armstrong, 85 Castlebeau Street in Embrun. Item 11D, is the 417 Industrial Park land purchase a repurchase of land in the existing 417 park or an extension of the 417 park? Where's the land to be purchased located? Monsieur Le Duc, Madame Tremblay, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is not a repurchase. This is a purchase of additional, if I remember well, 160 roughly acres of land, which is just on the south side of Boundary Road, or not Boundary, but the name escapes me. Madame Tremblay?
Burton Road and Edie Road.
Burton Road and Edie Road. Okay. So, c'est ça, c'est exactement ça. Okay. Perfect. So, thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong, for your question. With that, I do not see any other questions, so we'll move on to the next item. Item 15, resolution, motion that council approves all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from department and council committees. Need a mover and a seconder to put them on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Brisson, seconded by Councillor Ternosky. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Mike Ternosky, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Perfect. Item 15, resolutions are carried. Item 16, règlement. Règlement pièce 6 jointe 2021-94, purchasing bylaw, schedule A, bylaw 21-2094. Motion, sorry, let me switch pages here. Motion that council approves bylaws 2021-094 and 2021-097 to 2021-101 inclusively for the first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. Need a mover and a seconder, please, to put them on the table. Moved by Councillor Larin, seconded by Councillor Ternosky. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Mike Ternosky, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Perfect. The bylaws are carried. Item 18, other business presented by members of council. There was a few changes or additions. The first one was through myself. Monsieur Le Duc, Chief Duhamel or Chief Armstrong, in regards to the Christmas parades, I was just wondering, is that something we're working on? I know that, there's still challenges with COVID. I was just looking to see if there was any advancement on that file or any direction we're leaning towards.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, members of council, my camera is sort of not working there now. We had the discussion at our chief's meeting, Chief Armstrong and myself and Mr. Le Duc, and we tried to figure out something to do here. And right now, I'm looking at the city of Ottawa. They have canceled their parade due to the parades because they cannot control and it's virtually impossible for volunteers to check vaccination status. I think what Chief Armstrong and myself, I guess, would be looking for is support from council, I guess, and then what would the health unit, we'd have to go there and see what their perspective on this would be.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. I guess for my perspective, I would love to see it go ahead. But I think that it's really, we need the support of the Eastern Ontario Health Unit to give us the okay if they are comfortable with such an event moving forward. We haven't taken any decisions on in regarding, anything above and beyond the health unit. So if the health unit would be comfortable, I would be comfortable, but I guess I'll open it up to members of council if they have questions, or Monsieur Le Duc.
I missed the last meeting with Dr. Paul last week, but it's only 2 weeks ago. There were indications that he was ready to discuss further holidays and parades coming in the near future. So, like I said, I don't know if it was addressed last week or not, but they are to work on those issues soon. I don't know how soon that is. It will be soon enough for us to decide if we have a parade or not. Hoping that could be done. But I think we have a session next week, so certainly I'll be asking a question if we don't hear back from them before then.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Mr. Mayor, on the city website there, right from Otto right now, it says medical officer of health, Dr. Vera Etched, says the decision not to issue permits for the Santa Claus parade makes sense. So I don't know where, like, that's probably just their medical health issue down there, the officer there. So that's what Mr. Leduc would have to, I guess we'd wait for Dr. Paul and see how he thinks that. But the farther we wait, the longer we wait, it's going to be going to have issues trying to get the parades going. Like people started, they want to start to get the floats made up. And so that's what we're asked. They're just asking to see what, because we've been getting a lot of phone calls on this issue, and we're just telling them we're waiting right now for directions.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. So I guess I'll open it up to members. Are we interested in having the parade? If so, then council can give the direction to the administration that we would like to see one, and that we would like, for the health unit to give permission to have one, and let that call be the health units. Councillor Saucier.
Yeah, I know, like last year, even other communities did have their parades. Like I think Winchester had their parade of lights. And my understanding was the vaccine mandates don't have to be requested outside. That it was just for inside buildings that you're, like I know even at like the Metcalfe Fair, they weren't asking anybody outside. It was only if they were going in a building.
Right.
So that's why I'm just saying you might just want to check on that. And then, I mean, we're growing, the streets are lined with people. So, but I mean, I don't know. I sort of feel like just like when we did the light thing last year in the village, people just sort of need their spirits picked up too. Okay. That's another reason. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions, comments? Councillor Ternosky, Conseiller Lorrain.
So my concern would be if there's issues on distancing for the people that line the route, and so unless we get a positive nod from the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, I would vote against it.
Okay, thank you very much. Conseiller Lorrain and Conseiller Brisson.
Yeah, I echo Councillor Ternosky on that. I think we have to, we've relied on the Eastern Ontario Health Unit throughout the pandemic. I think we need to get their discussion point on this and see what they say. One concern I would have, and we're seeing it throughout the region at schools, is a big uptick in cases amongst kids at school. And who are the people that are going to be lining the street? Are kids that are aged 12 and under, 11 and under, and who cannot be vaccinated as of today. So I think that's probably going to be a big part of that concern from the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. So I think we definitely have to take direction from them on this. If it were today, I agree with Councillor Ternosky. I would probably say no today.
Okay. So just for clarification, if the health unit says it's okay, then you're both okay with it, correct? Okay. Conseiller Brisson?
For myself, I think I'm not that much. I know I would like the parade, but it's the time frame that is just left, especially for a lot of organization with kids, to have it prepared at the last minute. It could be really a challenge. So that's why personally, especially since I just heard that Ottawa had mentioned that theirs are not going on, and ours is in about a month now. So that's why I wouldn't have any problem saying right away that, sorry, it's hopefully for next year, but this year not to take any chances, since the case are even coming a bit higher. There's a flu Ouais, ça, là. Puis dans la région, ça fait que that's why I have no problem canceling it for this year, and the people would understand. And especially if it's just too late, the people just to get organized, as I was saying, is quite a challenge. So.
Thank you very much, Conseil Brisson. Another factor to consider in these discussions is, since the city of Ottawa has canceled today, if we go ahead and we put parades in place, we might see a big influx of people from the city of Ottawa coming to our parades. So that's definitely something that we have to keep in mind. Madame Bourdeau, t'avais-tu quelque chose à ajouter?
Je voulais juste indiquer le commentaire du bureau de santé était que il voyait mal canceller des parades quand il alloue des pleines arénas ou des salles de spectacle ou des choses comme ça. C'est un peu le message qui a passé, là, c'est qu'il y avait de la difficulté à donner des restrictions pour des parades qui sont entièrement dehors, puis qu'il reste les salles de spectacle s'emplir, puis les jeux de hockey de la Ligue nationale, etc.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Now that the province has allowed full capacity in movie theaters and arenas, that kind of stuff, we're talking about outdoor activities. Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, just keep in mind that all of these full capacity places, everyone has to be fully vaccinated.
That's correct.
Whereas outdoors, fully vaccinated and masked inside unless eating or drinking, versus being outside where distancing could be an issue, and there are people that will be unvaccinated. So I definitely think that that's additional things that we need to consider. And love to have the parades, but I think it's going to be a tough one again this year.
Yeah, so I think that the Chiefs are looking for direction, in the sense that if we're looking to move ahead, they have to get on this as soon as possible in order to make those. So I guess if we're comfortable, and this is what I want to confirm, if the Eastern Ontario Health Unit is comfortable with parades, are we okay with the parade moving forward? If we are, then we'll let the Chiefs know, and that's what they work. And if the health unit comes back and says, no, we're not going to allow it, then it's an automatic no. But I guess we just want to make sure, I want the Chiefs to have the backing of council. If it's an okay, then we say so today. If not, then we say no. But Councillor Tarnowski?
So I would just caveat that. I'm okay with that, but I would just caveat, and if Dr. Paul says right now we're good, but maybe in 2 weeks we may not be, that we take that into consideration.
Yeah, definitely. If Dr. Paul comes in at one point and says it's a no, then it's going to get canceled, and that's a no. But other member of council, if the health unit is okay with it, are you guys okay with it? Or if you want to say you don't even want Chiefs to have the conversation and cancel it now, now's the time to speak up.
Moi, j'aurais pas de problème de canceller comme c'est là.
Okay. Councillor Lorrain?
I would be of the same opinion as Councillor Brisson at this point.
Okay, so you guys don't want to move ahead with it. Councillor Saucier?
I would be fine with it if the health unit is fine with it.
Okay. And Councillor...
And the fire departments. They're the ones doing it, so they have to be good with it too.
Yeah.
Takes manpower.
Yes, definitely. Councillor Tarnowski, you stated, obviously, if Dr. Paul says it's okay, but if he changes his mind, then it's a no, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm okay if the health unit says it as well. Chief Armstrong, anything to add to the conversation?
I guess, Mr. Mayor, if we can put a deadline of this time next week for the health unit to get back to us, I think that will give us time to proceed. I think one thing we're looking at, it will be all outside activities. There'll be no inside pictures with Santa Claus, and everything will be just the parade route outside, nothing inside whatsoever. I think we have to make sure that's clear even moving forward. But as Chief Duhamel said, we can make it happen, but we want support from council and the health unit before proceeding. And as council said, if for some reason something changes in a couple of weeks, it's just a matter of phone calls to the people putting the floats in and canceling. We would really love to see it happen, but we want to make sure support is there first, and that's the key one. I mean, and with bylaw, Madame Millie, with road closures and stuff, she has to be on board too. So as long as we can work together and we have the support, we can make something happen.
Definitely. Okay. Thanks, Chief Armstrong. And I think as well, part of the process will be reminding the public social distancing, mask when you're too close, that kind of stuff. We can provide all the information that essentially has been given for the last year and a half. Obviously, we don't have the resources to start policing that, but there is a responsibility for the people who come and see it to understand what their responsibilities are as well. So work with Dr. Paul and see how we can make this work. If we can, great. If not, then it won't happen. We'll hopefully have it next year. Councillor Saucier.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, you could just recommend masks, that like when the museum just did their Heritage Day, masks were encouraged and most people had them, so it'd be warmer.
Yeah, it's basically just reminding the public of the recommendation that are put out by the health unit. So yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Avec ça, we'll move on. 18B, Councillor Saucier for the SNC auction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to make the public aware that there is South Nation is having an online auction, 32 auction. Last year, because of COVID, they couldn't have their golf tournament, which is their big fundraiser, and it was the same this year. So they're having, last year was local artists, there was painters, photographers, everything. This year they're focusing on wood, and so it's an online wood auction, and all proceeds go to planting trees locally. And so far this year, they've planted 230,000 trees in the area. So there's right now, I think, approximately 30 items online that people can bid on, and it's all made locally in our communities. There's actually, I think, at least three or four from Russell that are on there. So check it out, and you can bid and help to plant trees next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saucier. With that, I think that's it for item 18. We'll move on. 19 was removed. We're now going into closed session. Madame Camille Laflamme, could you read the exact wording to go into closed session?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just a second here. Yes, motion to move into closed session at the hour of 7:19 to address matters pertaining to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001, Chapter 25, to consider matters relating to potential acquisition in the village of Russell, verbal report. That's number 1. And the section is section 2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So I need a mover and a seconder to go into closed session. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor?
Mike Tarnowski, yes.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Thank you very much. We're going into closed session. It will be a couple of minutes to get there. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you shortly. Rebonjour tout le monde. We're reporting out of closed session. We're back live. Madame Camré Laflamme. Vous êtes muté, Joanne.
Sorry about that. So we're back at 7:47, and for the item, council was briefed on the subject and the direction given to staff on how to proceed.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Now we will go to the confirmation, confirming bylaw, that bylaw 2021-102. 102 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of Corporation, the Township of Russell, at its regular council meeting held on October 18, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time and passed. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Conseiller Lorrain. All those in favor?
Mike Tarnowski, oui.
André, oui.
Jamie, yes.
Cindy Sosa, yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Our next public, special public meetings of council will be held on October 20th and 21st, our budget working session. And the next regular public meeting of council will be held on Monday, November 4th, 2021. And we are adjourned at 7:48 p.m. Quick question, Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, you just mentioned the next meetings of council, the special meetings for the budget. Just reminding everyone that they are in person at the township offices.
Yep.
With, I believe they will be broadcast live though.
Yep, like we did before the pandemic, exactly.
So just thought I'd add that out so people don't think it's all online.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening. See you on Wednesday.
Merci, bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir tout le monde.
Bonsoir.
Salut.